And today, South Africa is taking the lead of the desires of those who survived the liberation struggle. Section 23 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe is very clear. It talks of honor, it talks of respect, it talks of recognition of those who fought the liberation struggle. And what has happened today, the ceremony, to me has clearly demonstrated how much the people of South Africa appreciate the sacrifices of those young people, brave young people, who made it to fight against the people's enemy of South Africa and Zimbabwe. I personally must congratulate you, because in Zimbabwe we are on our way. And when I heard Professor Manyanga speaking about Chimoyo, speaking about Zambia, Angola, where many of us, many of the liberation struggle fighters are lying. And the question of bringing closure, I want to repeat this. It's important to bring closure for those that are lucky, that depart this world with their mothers by their side. It is important. I'm not sure whether we will be able to do it, but I hope when you have this ceremony in South Africa, you should be able to invite the living war veterans in Zimbabwe so that we see the closure. Of our own comrades. So I am not going to say much, but just to congratulate the people of South Africa for doing just the right thing. I thank you.
We gather here to witness a send-off of the exhumed mortal remains of gallant fighters for freedom who have been for decades lying in exile while they fail fighting for the freedom of their native country, South Africa. The occasion is really momentous in that it also marks the immortalization of their role in the liberation of their country. The exhumation and repatriation of South African freedom fighters in Zimbabwe is a critical step towards acknowledging and honoring sacrifices made during the liberation struggles. During the liberation struggles against colonial and apartheid regimes, many South African freedom fighters sought refuge and support in Zimbabwe, then Rhodesia, where some were killed in battles or assassinated, whilst others died in exile through natural causes. The organizations that were involved in the exhumation included the South African Department of Military Veterans, Zimbabwe Ministry of Home Affairs and Cultural Heritage, the African National Congress, the South African Heritage Resources Agency, National Museums and Monuments of Zimbabwe. In recent years, the Zimbabwean government, in collaboration with South African government, and especially the liberation movements, have undertaken efforts to exhume and repatriate the remains of not only South African freedom fighters buried in Zimbabwe, but those of other liberation movements that are buried here. The same applies to us as we try to find closure in our own situation. It should be noted that the collaboration goes back to the early 2000s. As we recall, there were South Africans who died alongside Zimbabweans during the Rhodesian raids in Mozambique at Chimoyo and Nyadzonya in 1977 and 1976, respectively. Another case in point is the exhumation of Solomon Mahlangu in 2017, whose remains were successfully repatriated back to South Africa. The present exhumations are a culmination of consultations that started in March this year, when the South African delegation came for an identification, mapping, and documentation exercise. Zimbabwe's national museums and monuments, together with an interministerial team, assisted the delegation to navigate the complex Zimbabwe regulations on exhumations. The team came up with the tasks, and last week they returned for a successful exhumation mission. 15 South African freedom fighters were exhumed from 2 sections of Harare's Warren Hill Cemetery, and 1 was successfully exhumed from Athlone Cemetery in Bulawayo. The exhumation of the twin burial grave in Hyde Cemetery of Bulawayo, where Umkhonto weSizwe cadres involved in the Hwange battle were buried, is still work in progress. We therefore here witness the repatriation of 16 cadres back to their native land for a final rest. I'm told the state of preservation of the remains was good to excellent in most cases, where in some cases the remains were recovered in their complete burial suits. Thanks to the exhumation team for their careful and dexterous work. The joint operation also meant the extended camaraderie and sharing of professional expertise. The exhumations and repatriation are significant for a number of reasons. First of all, they provide closure for the families of the deceased. Secondly, they help promote reconciliation between the past struggles of South Africa and Zimbabwe. The process represents a pivotal moment in the historically close ties between Zimbabwe and South Africa, especially and among the liberation movements. And lastly, it helps in preserving the history and legacy of the liberation struggle, as well as promoting professional exchange. I thank you.